big discussion goals. First, who is Gen Z? Why do we care? What's different? So what is going on in the stratosphere that has created baby boomers to be the lovely humans that you are, and what has happened in the universe when I was born for me to be, the cute little curmudgeon person that I am today. And then finally, how do we tie this into mentorship? Spoiler alert, you already have some really good information that Lisa and Brian and all the other lovely coordinators have taught you. But we're gonna kind of shift the perspective in that. I do want to show this cute little graph. We see that we have different big things that are kind of happening during different generations. So, World War II, we have the recession in 2008. There's a lot of different things that, socioeconomically and huge country globally affect who we are as people. So when I talk about what I'm going to talk about, it's gonna come from this huge big lens, and you're gonna be like, that has nothing to do with Zoomers. They're just lazy and they know internet better than me. No, there's a whole thing, and everything's all mushy, which is why this is better as a conversation, because I can go as linearly as I want to, but I'm gonna want to skip around a lot because everything is connected. Because people are not, a cute little straight easy line. That's not. Too simple, you get that. So here is the quote unquote definitions, basic characteristics of Generation Z versus our baby boomers. I'm so sorry, Gen X and millennials. I didn't put you on here. It was too much work for me. But just to look at these two big demographics that we're going to be seeing in our mentorship program as a whole. We see Zoomers as, our mentees. We're typically pragmatic, we seek authenticity, sometimes to the point where we kind of seem like rude sometimes. Mm-hmm. You'd say, it's okay. They're not gonna judge you. They sometimes they can be rude. I can be rude, it's fine. Collaborative and social, which I'm sure is kind of really? They're on their phone all the time. No, we like to collaborate. We like to do things together as a team. We are a diverse demographic, and we also seek out diversity. We also have significant mental health needs. Look at that, phones, spoiler alert, not good for mental health. Mm-hmm. We also are noticing something called the slow life stretch. This is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit more, but long story short, I need to slow, stretching things out. Think about that imagery. And then also, nihilism and things. We like to work to live as opposed to live to work. Which, if you look over here, boomers, when stereotypically we're thinking about your lovely generation, we think about how, competitive you are and how much you define yourselves based off of your professional accomplishments. And so, that to a lot of people seem like you're kind of living to work, and you're happy about that because you're doing so many great things in your profession when you were working full-time, or if you're still working full-time. We also see that you guys are self-assured, probably because you've been around, a little bit more than I do, maybe. And just overall, there's this confidence and this independence that you guys have that we don't necessarily see as being beneficial 100% of the time. And in terms of where the pendulum is swinging right now, we do have increased recognition of how important the trades are to our community and how we need to get more young people to feel comfortable going into trades. I would say that we are still kind of at a point in our perceptions that higher education is better. Even though there are nationally some good pockets of people who are if you go into these trades, you can still make some really, really good money, and you're doing something hands-on and that benefits you better as a kid. So it's there's a little bit of a societal inertia it's following. We're getting there, but we're not quite at that precipice yet where we have that balance between higher education and trade schools yet. Not quite, we're getting there. We're going to talk about diversity and seeking diversity. We kind of talked about it a little bit. So compared to other generations, Generation Z and a little bit of millennials, but mostly Generation Z, they're more likely to identify as bisexual as part of the LGBTQ+IA community. Now, compared to other generations, there are some upticks in that increased awareness and that increased acceptance throughout all of the letters in the alphabet that is now queer conceptualization. But for some reason, bisexuality is just something that a lot of Generation Z students are trying to identify with right now. Again, it might change. They might put on another hat. They might get a little more specific. They might get less specific. But regardless, they're starting to be more comfortable in trying these identities. And as mentors and as mental health professionals, I do recommend that we validate these, even if, we have different opinions about it, because ultimately it's their life. So in special education, going through my graduate program, when we are talking about students who are on IEPs, a lot of states, I think 48 or 49 of them, require that we have specific labels. And there's always this debate in graduate programs of, we don't want to label the kids because we want kids to just get the things that they need. And it would be so much better if we did things like Iowa, where they just are eligible students and whatever. But at the end of the day, there are some people and individuals who are being identified who believe that the labels are like a necessary evil, as so to speak, in order to make sure that we're going through the right processes for specific things. So when it comes to labels in general, especially sexual identity or gender or whatever, in adolescence, early to mid-adolescence, they don't know who they are yet. They're not supposed to know who they are yet. Developmentally, they've never known who they are, and they won't until they're about my age. That's just how all of our brains work. So now we're trying to figure out what pieces fit us, and we're more communicative about what fits us better. And we try things out, and that's okay, because a lot of people who do research on sexuality and on gender, sexuality and gender are fluid. So it's so okay that they're trying different things, because research has shown that that's just kind of how it is. And they're adolescents, so they're trying different things on top of all of that. So it helps them communicate to other people as well as to themselves how they're feeling and what their identity is to them. In terms of racial and ethnic diversity, socioeconomic status, again, gender and sexuality, all of the big demographic pieces in one person's intersectionality, overall we're just more diverse. We're also actively seeking out different people so that we can get different perspectives. Because again, we are social and collaborative. So if I understand more about another person's perspective, then I'm able to advocate for them and likewise they for me. So I want to put this quote up on the board. We're going to kind of start talking about some misconceptions versus realities. But I want to remind you of this mindset that we're kind of starting to solidify in this conversation. So Melissa DeWitt, in one of the research articles that I read, said that many of us who are older have a different understanding of how the world works, which is rooted in our own early experiences. So it's easy for us to assume that the world will continue to operate in much the same way going forward, and that the young people need to adapt to that older way of living. So it's kind of that callback to Zoomers are more future thinkers, whereas Boomers are kind of laid more into tradition. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that Zoomers don't care about tradition by any means. They care a lot about our cultures and basically our rituals that we're doing with our families and with our community. But we do have to think forward. We are expected to think forward. That's something that we see in the continued education and the trade schools that we are expected to do, right? So, misconceptions. Zoomers are snowflakes and they're unwilling to grow up. Do we feel that? I feel like we kind of talked about this. They're soft, they're going to melt super easy, they're very fragile. Realistically, social development has significantly slowed as the U.S. prioritizes increase in age and education. So this plus that limited face-to-face interactions, we've kind of led to that slow life stretch. And again, your adolescent humans, do not have a developed brain. I cannot stress that part enough. Their prefrontal cortex, the judgment, decision-making part of their brain, kind of like half mush right now. And that's, again, super okay. That's how your brains were at their age. But because of society plus that, they're more likely to be impulsive. They're more likely to feed into phone addictions and things. And if they do kind of have that pragmatic and authentic conversation, even if it does come off as rude, they're not necessarily the best at receiving pushback, because then it becomes like a personal attack as opposed to a conversation about this thing that they've connected themselves to, but is not who they are. But when it comes to the slow life stretch versus the fast life stretch, this is a phenomenon that we are seeing more and more as technology has advanced and how society is seeing what is success. Now, society, not specific generations. So we are seeing, especially in the United States, that continued education, receiving bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, that is something that is seen as more successful and better. So students are students for longer. I'm still a student right now. I want it to end, I pinky promise, but I do engage in the slow life stretch. People are leaving the house later, they're living with their parents longer, people are living longer, we're getting married later, so all of these like socio-developmental things, instead of happening, right around high school, right after high school, they're happening later in life. And personally, as someone who understands some neurodevelopmental stuff and things, I kind of like it because our brains don't develop or fully develop until about 20, 25-ish, depending on hormones and blah, 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 blah. So I kind of like the idea of society allowing us to like take our time and make sure that we're making these big decisions, over a long period of time, because then you're not getting yourself stuck in like these potentially regretful situations. I talked about slow life stretch, but I'm going to mention fast life stretch a little bit. So slow life stretch is what Gen Z is experiencing, where it's taking longer for us to develop socially, whereas for baby boomers and a lot of generations, like Gen X and prior, it's kind of a faster thing. So we're seeing kind of adult behaviors beginning in mid to late adolescence. So drinking alcohol, getting a driver's license, getting married right after high school. Like these are things that were kind of societal expectations in generations prior that are no longer societal expectations now. The biggest thing is that perfectionism and that continuing college or continuing into trade schools so that you can try and live a better life monetarily. Zoomers are lazy and do not want to work. We kind of talked about how there's that push for that work-life balance, and that there are different ways that students are starting to recognize what success looks like. And how we discuss who we are as people, we're very focused on what we do outside of work right now, because that is what a lot of people used to do pre-industrialized, So trying to bring that back in and trying to bring back the joy in what you're doing outside of work. Because it's not fun to work 13 hours and then come home and then go to sleep and then, get up and do it all over again. I would say in Gen Z, there's the two houses of what can I do the least amount of work of to make the most amount of money so I can go travel and live my life outside of work. And then there are other people, I would say less, about 50-50, maybe like 45-65%, where they feel like in order to be happy, they have to enjoy their work. But overall, what we're going to talk about is we have this need and desire to have a professional work-life balance, especially us older Zoomers who are out of high school, and now we're at the point where we understand that we only have one life, so we might as well live, laugh, love it. I keep saying that there's a little bit of nihilism and not a lot of we're future thinkers overall, but not necessarily man, we things are set up for us for success. It's more like, what are we going to do? There is a big push on work your wage, work-life balance, all of these things in Generation Z, because we are starting to kind of try and focus as we're going into the workforce. How do I respect my own time, and how do I make sure that others respect my time too? Zoomers are obsessed with their phones and can't live without them, and we kind of said that's true, right? Yeah. But we're also seeing that in other generations too. That big important piece is that learning how to utilize their phones appropriately. It's just harder for us because we have such a narrow scope of what the universe looks like, because we only know what the universe looks like with internet. And also that big piece about socialization kind of being set up now for the internet and for indirect modes of communication, as opposed to being set up for face-to-face conversations. We really like communication, but we're not necessarily like visually authentic. Sometimes I'm still wearing my whole button up and I'm all cute and stuff. But when it comes to the words that I'm saying, I'm going to tell you what I am thinking for the most part. I'm still a professional, I'm still 25, so I gotta behave a little bit. But our adolescents aren't as tactful about what they're saying, right? They kind of just say it. Have we noticed that in our mentoring? When it comes to communication today, there are a number of modalities that just weren't around when you guys were growing up. We have text messaging, we have the internet, we have these different apps, and you need these sort of things in order to communicate, because when it comes to how we talk about communication, if there's someone who's busy right now or in a different room or something, we just message the other person. We're going, instead of trying to wait to have conversations, we're just kind of throwing information out into the universe. That also means that we don't have those nonverbal cues. So if we are specific in what we're saying and we're clear in what we're saying, then that kind of breaks down that need of those nonverbal cues that are more necessary in face-to-face conversation. So Zoomers! No, I've been saying all the things about technology ever since the beginning of the dawn of time, because we were born with the internet. I will say, however, in reality, because we do know how to access the internet, we kind of know how Google software works, so we know how to put in the correct search word optimization things so that we can Google things a little bit better. So we might get to an answer faster than if you were to Google it yourself. But if you're going to ask me how to use Microsoft OneDrive, I don't know anything. I gotta Google it. So, just don't assume because I'm 25 that I know things. I don't. I recommend Googling things and not putting that on your mentees. The root of a lot of our concerns right now for Gen Z and their mental health is the technology piece. So when you have technology in your bedroom when you go to bed, one, you're more likely to be on your phone, especially Gen Z, than actually go to bed. You have all this light that's, on televisions and alarm clocks and all these, other pieces of technology that are affecting your circadian rhythm, your sleep cycle. So you're not falling asleep as quickly, even if you're not on your phone. Your quality of sleep is also lower compared to generations past because there's more technology in our bedrooms now. But also, we do recognize as mental health professionals that Gen Z, like all other generations, we're kind of glued to our phones right now. We're in a society where our phones are our lives. And the difference is other generations have lived lives prior to their phones. I was literally born within a year of the conceptualization of the World Wide Web. I literally do not have a concept of the universe without internet. So when we talk about overstimulation, we're seeing that our attention spans in the moment are a little bit lower. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And there's just a lot of this unchanneled information that if you don't have healthy mobile data usage habits, then you're not going to do well mentally or otherwise. When it comes to like how people utilize social media and other internet platforms, there are two ways that you can use internet or in like social media and stuff. You can either post things and you can try and display your best photos. It's kind of like your photo album that you put out on your coffee table, the good photo album. It's like that, but on the internet. If we're taking some of students' phones away in high schools or in middle schools, then we notice that they get really anxious. I do some standardized testing in my job, and students are pulling out their phones and like, my friends want to know where I am. Like, dude, I literally cannot allow you to have your phone out right now. Don't do that. So it's, they have to balance that too, but they've never been taught how to have those healthy habits. It's a dependency, and sometimes it can go into addiction. If, say, a quarter of their communication time is being spent having those face-to-face conversations, if half of that quarter, so 1/8 of their time, they're being ostracized or ridiculed or whatever, or they, feel like they're trying to learn these social cues that they don't know because they spend 3/4 of their time not needing nonverbal social cues, then they might be more anxious to have in-person conversations. Well, although, according to a research study of tens of thousands of Zoomers, they would prefer to have in-person conversations, they just don't have access to them. If they are having multiple repeated negative interactions over the course of days, weeks, months, etc., it's not going to be fun for them. They're going to try and keep communication more online, and that it's going to focus more on those online interactions, because you can kind of control yourself, and you can you're still being authentic, but you're still like keeping yourself safe. We're bringing back what we're supposed to do with our mentees. And I'm sure you've heard these things in one way or another before. Basic mental health 101, get kids to hang out with adults, have them feel validated, right? Cultivate some curiosity in them. Get them out into the community. We want them to feel safe and comfortable with us so that they trust us to come to us with different things, even some opinions that we might not agree with. And the best way to interact in those situations is to come with an open mind and have that piece of curiosity. So ask them why they think that way, what led them to think this way, or, whatever. As long as we're trying our best and we're trying to see things from their point of view, and, their emotions are their emotions, whether you agree with them or not. They're having them, so we might as well validate them. It's going to foster a stronger connection through mentorship. And I really, really cannot stress this enough. Just you being there, you are saving some people's lives. At the end of the day, there is someone who has been saved because you are in those classrooms, not the classroom, sometimes in the hallway at the high school, but an hour a week. And I don't want you guys to forget that. We do all this training, but you're trying your best. And we are so, so thankful for everything that you guys do.